I got to say, this is a very dispiriting, disheartening, frustrating midterm election. And it has a lot of people on our side really dejected and a little freaked out because for a number of reasons. First of all, it appears to be the third bad election for us. 2018 was a bad election in which the control of Congress slipped out of our hands. Remember, in 2016, we had both houses of Congress and the presidency. So we didn't have that after 2018. Then, of course, there was 2020 and now 2022. The strange thing about all this is that these have been, particularly 2020 and 2022, close elections, but close elections in which the close races seem to fall the other way. And so if you look at 2022 and you look at the overall votes, the Republican Party got 5 million more votes than the Democratic Party. Now, this has no kind of electoral significance. This is like the left saying that Hillary won the popular vote. But the reason I mention it is that when you win more votes and yet you lose seats and you lose Senate seats and you even lose House seats that you should have won, you have to ask, why is it the case that you've got the numbers on your side, but the actual victories are going their side? It's kind of like saying, I have more overall points, but I'm always losing sets, and I'm losing the tennis match as a result. Now, there is a lot of scrutiny to be done and a lot of blame to go around, and I see a lot of fingers of blame being pointed in lots of directions. First of all, we should say that almost nobody saw this coming. I didn't. I expected that the American people would have, had enough with inflation, had enough with gas prices, had enough with foreign policy disasters, had enough with the border, had enough with crime. And that would be enough. That would be sufficient, where people would go, listen, to the party in power, no. And in fact, that is the basis for on which, by and large, ruling parties tend to lose seats in the midterms, because they tend to push their advantage. People then push back in the midterms, and that hasn't happened here. Now, some of the responsibility for this goes to McConnell. That can't be avoided. His machinations. I mean, it's one thing to fight against a formidable Democratic Party, but to have your own guy doing private maneuvers, seems like it's almost like McConnell threw the whole election to save Lisa Murkowski in Alaska. I mean, it's a little bit of an overstatement, I think, but nevertheless, there is blame to go around there. In some ways, there's blame, I think, to go to Trump. And the blame is it focuses on picking candidates based upon the sort of Trumpian criteria of one, celebrity. Trump seems to think that celebrity gets you 80% there. So Oz is a celebrity. Herschel Walker is a celebrity. And this is a figure who comes out of popular culture. So Trump, I'm not saying that celebrity is not an advantage. In fact, in Texas, Debbie and I have just been reading this article in Texas Monthly. They're going, how can the Democrats, revive their fortunes in Texas where they get clobbered every time? Answer, let's run Eva Longoria. Let's run Matthew McConaughey. Let's find a celebrity who can help us do better. So it's not as if this is completely irrational thinking. But I will say that Trump tends to pick people he knows that are celebrities. And the question is, are those the strongest candidates to field in those states? That is a legitimate question. The other question, and I'll be talking more about this in the days and weeks ahead, is do we have to change our whole view of how the game is played? I just made a short video for locals about this, and I'm going to sort of share the main theme of it. It's this. Imagine a tennis match in which you have two guys who play with wooden rackets or play with the old rackets. And then coming through technology or coming through changes, new rackets come around which are lighter, more powerful, and some players grab the new rackets, but there are old style players who go, listen, this is unfair. We should outlaw the new rackets. We don't want to play with these lighter rackets. No. So the point is, that's fine. You can actually lobby to change the rules and have everybody play with the same old racket. The new racket is seen as something that gives you an unfair advantage. But let's say the new rackets are accepted. Let's say that they're being used. then it seems to me that you're going to lose every time if you try to be like some 21st century Bjorn Borg and go, listen, no, I'm going to still play with the old racket. What am I getting at? What I'm getting at is, take the example of Pennsylvania. Fetterman was able to put over 1 million votes in the bank through early voting. So even though Oz won something like 70-30 or 65-35 on election day, it wasn't enough to overcome the early voting advantage accumulated by Fetterman. And that's how Oz lost. So the point being here, the Democrats have, in a sense, almost perfected a ground game of putting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of votes in the bag. And we might see this happening also with Kari Lake. If Kari Lake loses in Arizona, it'll be in part, I think, not because she's a flawed candidate. She's actually a far superior candidate to the dopey Katie Hobbs, who didn't even really campaign. But think about it. How can Democrats who barely campaign, Oz, I'm thinking of Fetterman and Katie Hobbs, and even Biden, how is it that they can get across the finish line? And one answer, not the only answer, but one answer is the Dems have mastered the art of the game of early voting, and we might have to consider playing the same game by the same rules.